a general knowledge. So there is a whopping total of 6 suspects that seem most plausible. The 3 that I'll talk about is the family. So first we have the mother. And a lot of people think that Patsy Ramsey killed her daughter in a fit of rage because after like a bedwetting incident, because John Bonet was like frequent to do that, and Patsy had a short temper. It was also determined that the ransom note was on Patsy's stationery from inside the home, and the handwriting was like inconclusive, so they're not quite sure what happened with that. If like it could be, it could not be. Next in the family we have the father, and he was just like kind of suspicious to begin with. So first of all, he found the body and kind of like butchered the crime scene, which obviously could have just been like a worried father, like confused and like, I mean, you just found your kid dead. Obviously, you're not going to think about let's preserve the evidence, but people think that he kind of like covered things up, and he had a lot of money, so he could have bribed people, and especially like the police force, and bribed them into doing crappy work. A lot of people also think that he covered up for his son, which brings us to our 3rd suspect, which is the brother. And a lot of this comes from the fact that I think it was in 2016 maybe, the family went on Dr. Phil, and people just overall like didn't really like the guy. Like they just thought he was like suspicious. He was like smiling during parts where they were like talking about his sister's gruesome murder. Like he was just a weird dude overall. And people think that John Bonet had taken a slice of fruit from her brother Burke's like bowl, and that he got mad, and he was just like 9 at the time, that he might have like hit her over the head. But then people don't really understand where the asphyxiation comes from. So Courtney, do you have anything to say about those suspects or any more suspects?
Well, I know that the thing used to strangle her was the mom's paintbrushes in the basement. But then at the same time, they found the undigested pineapple in her stomach, which matched with the pineapple that was on the counter in the kitchen. So,
which was her brother's.
Right.
So that's just kind of weird.
For the crime scene too, on that part, they found his fingerprints on the bowl.
Did they really?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that does not look good for him.
So probably shows that it was actually his bowl.
Yeah, and he's just creepy looking. He doesn't look related to the family at all.
He's just kind of like an oddball, and like maybe he's just a weird dude.
Maybe.
I mean, like he did spend most of his life now like under microscope because his sister died and no one knows how. But also like he's just kind of, I don't know, he just rubs me the wrong way. I definitely lean towards him, but that's just me. So what about these other suspects?
Gary Olivia, the town drifter, was a known sex offender who lived in Boulder, Colorado. A lot of the town thinks that Gary did it, but at the same time,
just because he's homeless?
Yeah, probably. Well,
a little stereotyping going on in this case.
Yeah, a lot. He did tell one of his friends that he hurt a little girl right around the time of the case. So, yeah, his friend told the police that. But at the same time, it's just like there's no like solid evidence that there was an intruder. So he was cleared by the DNA evidence. So
yeah. So what about these other ones?
The electrician, Michael Helgoth, was tied to an alleged property dispute involving the Ramseys.
So he was looking for money.
Yeah.
So that would kind of explain the ransom note almost, actually.
But at the same time, he's not really close enough with them to know what the father's Christmas bonus would have been.
Yeah, and that's kind of something that would be a weird, wild guess to take.
Yeah. So again, cleared by the DNA evidence. So the housekeeper, Linda Hoffman Pugh worked as a housekeeper for the Ramsey family, and her husband worked as their handyman. She was known to carry a key to the Ramsey's house, so that would make sense.
So they were so rich they had a housekeeper? What's that like?
Yeah, right. It's interesting because the housekeeper's not really talked about in most of the case.
Yeah.
And there's really like no solid evidence pointing towards her. They're kind of just looking for people to blame at that point.
Who did it?
I think it was Burke and the dad.
Yeah.
Or I just think it was both parents of Burke. I think that.
So this was like a team effort?
I think that, I mean, they were little kids, and I think, didn't they say there were signs of Burke having anger management?
Yeah.
And his mom did too.
I think they even said maybe like autism spectrum, which doesn't make people violent, but it explains his behavior.
I think what the most important evidence was the fingerprint on the bowl, and that she had pineapple in her stomach. I think that him being a kid, he probably got mad she ate it, and he hit her on the head, and he did a little bit too hard, and I think when she maybe was unconscious, the dad thought she was dead, and that's why he strangled her.
Yeah, and that's definitely the theory that this website, westward.com, explains, because on the Dr. Phil show, Burke was kind of like low-key ripped apart, not necessarily by Dr. Phil, but like by the internet afterwards, and they were just very critical of him, his story, his role. So yeah, I definitely lean towards the idea that Burke did it based on this website and based on the fact that like accidents happen when you're a kid. I don't think he meant to kill his sister. I think he killed her, and then the parents were like, crap, like we don't want our kid getting in trouble, and so they just like in a panic wrote up a note, threw their kid in the basement, and like called the cops. But so Courtney, what do you think?
Well, I think again it was probably the brother that did it, but not necessarily because of like the pineapple thing.
Yeah.
Because he did have like a history of being angry and violent.
Yeah,
or
just
whatever.
like a violent kid.
Yeah. Which isn't always a great reason to blame somebody, but at the same time, it's if he did kill her, her parents could have had like some sort of life insurance policy based on the money that she made from pageants, and like with the ransom note thing, they could have just been like, random number. Oh, it just happened to be the number of the father's Christmas bonus.
And that's what forensicoutreach.com is what we're looking at here with that. They explain 4 pieces of evidence that just really don't fit that well.
Yeah.
And this ransom note is one that like they keep coming back to because they're like, why was the paper found in the house like beforehand? Why does the handwriting seem to match Patsy's? And why this specific number? And who would have known how much that Christmas bonus would have been?
Right.
And the most plausible explanation is the parents. But then you comes back to like
they were covering up for Burke.
Yeah.
The website also says that they think the ransom note was written before she was even dead.
Oh, that's scary. I don't like that.
If somebody did break in, it was somebody she knew, or they just assumed that whoever killed her was someone she knew.
Yeah.
To get her out of bed that night.
Yeah. So
one thing that doesn't like make sense to me is like the mother also has some anger management stuff going on.
Yeah, she's definitely
like is a bedwetting incident really enough to provoke her to kill her own daughter?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I guess her kid's like 6 at the time, so postpartum doesn't like really explain this. But like there is cases of like shaken baby syndrome, postpartum depression, and like that's a whole other thing.
But that's 6 years
Exactly.
later.
So 6 years later, like, could she resent her child to the point where she wanted to kill her?
I don't know.
Was it an accident? So that's just definitely something interesting. So we definitely seem to agree that Burke is the #1 suspect here, and that the parents worked together to cover this up. But how come the police just sort of sucked at this case? Did they just seem to drop the ball, or do we think that they were paid off?
I think that they're paid off.
Yeah, I think they really tried to just like bury this.
Yeah.
But the family was pretty prominent in not only Boulder, Colorado, but also just like the pageant world. And her dad was really rich and had a nice, like, high-tech exec job. So it's definitely possible that the police were paid off.
For sure. I mean, it happens all the time.
They think that the dad, John, maybe bought off the people who examined the DNA because they based the whole, like, convicting suspects around, like, if they matched DNA, and they think that John maybe bought off people who did that because the police refused to examine, it's called the Garrett string and knot that she was tied up with.
Oh, yeah.
So there was lots of DNA on that too.
Which, like, any normal person would want that tested.
Yeah.
And would want, like, especially the department, that would, like, close the case right then and there.
Because whoever was, like, tying it, their fingerprints or DNA, something would have been on that, and for some reason they just didn't, they refused to examine it, so there's theories that he paid them off.
Is it really that expensive to examine? Is that why they didn't do it? Like, that's why I'm just like, why would you not? If you have something that could possibly close the case, like,
Closed.
That's true. That's true. I think they just wanted this, like, buried.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, sadly, John Pernay will never get the case, or the closed case that she deserves. But yeah. And then now, like, a lot of the people that were attached to the case are actually, like, dead. Like, her mom died in 2016. Apparently she had a sister, or maybe it was her mom's sister, but she died later on. So now we're down to just Burke and the dad, and they aren't gonna talk now. It's been what, like, over nearly 20 years.
The police had a lot of problems with them having inconsistent stories.
Yeah.
So.
Which, like, on the night of your sister's murder or your daughter's murder, like, wouldn't you remember every single detail? Like, they found the body and stuff, and then they interviewed them subsequently, and every time their stories changed. So I just think it's sus. I definitely think it was something with the family. I don't really understand why she was killed. I feel like it was probably an accident, but then also, as you said, like, that ransom note was written beforehand, which is just weird.
And that's where I think it goes back to, I think Burke probably, or someone probably hit her, and they thought she was unconscious, but she was really alive, so they wrote the note, and then
that's true.
Somebody, the asphyxiation, somebody just maybe just choked her to death or something.
Yeah.
When she was still really alive.
That's true. Is it possible, like, I just don't understand, because if they hit her over the head really hard, she got knocked out, and they think she's dead. Why would their response be to strangle her? You know what I mean? Because she was found with, like, duct tape and that rope around her hand, so, like, it's a pretty violent crime for if it were an accident, like.
Yeah.
And then why would they hide her in the basement?
Exactly, like, such a weird place to dispose of a body, like, in your own house, like, what are you thinking? Like, I'm sure he could have paid a hitman to take his kid somewhere else if he wanted to.
It just definitely sounds like a nervous dad.
Oh yeah, like,
who has
they obviously did not think this through.
Obviously never, like,
killed anyone.
I mean, hopefully nobody had to think about that before, but.
Exactly, maybe he's a mobster. Well, yeah, I think this concludes our podcast. Any closing remarks we want to say?
The brother did it.
Definitely the brother did it.
It was either Burke or the dad.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody in the family hit her, and they just tried to hide it.
Yeah, this case is closed. We solved it. Way to go, team.
That was it.
Boom. We out.